All right, good morning, everyone. So thanks for the introduction earlier, Alex. So Davey and I can confirm that having Asco and Peterson within 5 feet of each other, the world is not going to implode. In fact, quite the contrary. Has been interesting over the last couple of weeks when we've both been working away on this presentation internally, where there's been eyebrows raised within our respective organisations. But the reality is, we both jumped at the opportunity to come and talk to you all today about some topics that we're passionate about, which obviously involve your teams as well. So without further ado, what are we going to go through today? So we're just going to do a quick slide about who we are. So we're not going to insult your intelligence. We'll just put it up. I guess we're not competing with the Port of Aberdeen, so neither of us are 900 years old. But I think it's fair to say that, particularly in this part of the world, most people that have been down to a quayside in the northeast know who Asco and Petersons are. So we pretty much do the same thing. We've both got a lot of experience. And I think collectively, we've got a lot to share in terms of understanding what happens around the quayside. And I guess that's probably the key thing for the likes of both companies, is that we work with all the stakeholders that have got material passing through quaysides, as well as obviously materials that are land-based and land-moved as well. So that's kind of who we are. And obviously, if you want to have a chat to us specifically afterwards, a little bit more detail, then please come and have a chat to us. So I guess kind of the key first topic that we wanted to talk about is PDOs. And I think it was really interesting, sort of Alex opening comments, and certainly looking at some of the statistics that he threw up. Certainly kind of conversations that we're having with clients, conversations we're having with OE UK and Step Change and Safety is that, yes, the North East and the North Sea in particular is a declining market, less activity, but sadly we're not seeing a significant decrease in incidents. In fact, in some cases we're starting to see an increase. And certainly what we're experiencing from a non-conformance of material moving through the supply chain, we're not seeing that dramatically drop off either. We're actually starting to see that increase. So I guess it begs the question, why is that happening? I guess we've got our own insights as to why. We know that certainly in both organisations, sort of post-COVID, a lot of IP left each organisation. What we're starting to see with the workload and the demand for services, it's certainly not the same as it was 10 years ago. So having the labour to support that becomes more challenging. So we've got different labour models that we both use now that's really a mixture of permanent staff, but we have to bring ad hoc staff in to help as well. So the challenges of bringing people that are not continually part of your team and building that teamwork around what they're doing each day, particularly around high-risk work, becomes far more challenging. And I guess why we talk about PDOs, if we look at the North Sea, it's in its 7th decade of operation. You would have thought we were kind of nailed non-conformances, but we're not. And as I sort of alluded to, there's a few reasons why we're seeing it. But I guess the key thing and David will talk about kind of the supply chain, is that we're all responsible for this. It's not just a supplier. It's not just us at the quaysides. It's not just vessel operators. It's just not the people on the assets. We've actually all got ownership of it. And we're still seeing plenty of examples, sadly, where material is making its way from a supplier onshore through the supply chain onto an asset, and a PDO is identified on the asset, okay, and vice versa. So none of us are perfect. So what we're going to go through today is not about pointing fingers at anybody. It's just about really highlighting that we all have to collaborate, okay? If we all work together on the elements that we're responsible for, the greater the opportunity that we'll identify and eliminate these things from happening. Because ultimately what we don't want to have is, another statistic that appears on a graph that says, hey, we've had a fatality, okay? And if we kind of go back, I think the last time there was a fatality on a quayside in the northeast was around, I think, the 2009, I think. So I think there was a dropped object with a fatality. So there's been a lot of work collectively to make sure that doesn't happen. But again, talking about the increase in PDOs that we're seeing, I guess we've all got to have that sense of chronic unease that we need to remove the luck of that PDO not becoming an incident, a fatality. Okay, So it's a shared responsibility. So what we're just going to go through, I'm not going to insult anybody, but these, first of all, what we're actually going to do is just go through a quick video. It's a little bit light-hearted, but I guess the messaging is pretty clear and pretty serious. Of course, I don't think we're going to get the volume to work. Yep. Okay. I think what I'll do is I'll just bypass it, even if we can't get it. Yeah. So I think what it actually takes us through is a scenario offshore where there's a couple of PDOs that actually turn into incidents, and I guess what it's really highlighting is kind of the things we're just about to go through now. So these are real examples. So I've got some examples, recent ones of material that's going offshore that we've been able to pick up at the gantry, okay? And then some recent ones which have come back to shore as well. So, this one you can see, I've highlighted what it is. It's a pair of snippers. So again, if everyone's in the room is familiar with the drops calculator. So if you think of these, these were found on the back of a truck, okay? Obviously discovered, that's the great thing, but they've made it that far on the back of a truck. So, you or one of your family could have been driving on the road behind that truck as it made its way into the supply base. So, it doesn't take Einstein to work out using the drops calculator what the potential outcome could have been. So real examples, again, this one here, corner of a CCU, it's a bolt. Okay, and then the last one, maybe not so obvious, but it's got a missing pin on the bolt assembly. Okay. So this is recent ones coming back to shore. So this is all matting, as you can see from a load restraint perspective. That was never going to hold that load securely in that CCU coming back to shore, or particularly being put then on a truck. That one, I must admit, I kind of struggled with what it was at first. So it's actually a bit of fruit, obviously one that wasn't very ripe, but again, randomly sitting on top of a CCU that came back. And this one was a piece of steel that was sitting on top of that IBC in the rack. And then last but not least, this is a more recent one. So that was in the pockets, the time pockets of a CCU. Okay. So again, real examples. So it shows that this is real. So for us, it's really about educating, training our own people, the importance of doing their checks, okay? These are the ones that we've been lucky enough to pick up, right? So then begs the question, what have we missed, okay? And I guess I'll hand over to Davey now.
Cool, thank you very much, Santa. Sorry, I had that switched off there, so I would have jumped in a little bit earlier. But yeah, as Jock said, it's good to do a bit of collaboration here between Peterson and Asco. I think quite rightly a bit of eyebrows on that, but we are doing much the same thing as well. We were talking about the port, and particularly Torrey Marine Base. Yeah, for us, we're working there together. Yeah, we work well together. There doesn't be any issues. Yeah, but the same processes that we have with cargo coming in and going out, are much the same. So some of the PDOs that we've found very, very similar over the time. Again, depends on the amount of cargo going through, will depend on how much is actually being found. One of the things that we wanted to kind of pick up on was the processes. We weren't going to go into statistics and kind of things like that as well, but it's just to make clear that the cargo inspection process, which PDOs is one part of that, there's obviously lots of other bits in that as well, relies on a number of actual layers throughout that process. So the cargo inspection process, it is robust, but it's obviously limited by human factors, procedural and contextual as well, weaknesses, meaning the environment or the surroundings where you're carrying out those inspections. And we'll go into a little bit of that just in a second. I popped that Swiss cheese model in just to give a little bit of a kind of an idea that you know, we need those layers of inspections throughout the process, yeah, for it to work. Yeah, because there's going to be weaknesses wherever we go. Yeah, we do have a video coming up. I hope that hopefully the actual volume works through. But just to explain that at the source, yeah, where cargo gets picked up is probably the most important area. Because after that, it goes on the road. So even if a driver doesn't pick up on something, we may pick it up at the quayside at the gantry, yeah, which is great, and we pat ourselves on the back and say we've found a PDO. That's not going to get offshore. But at that stage, it's already been on the road. Okay, so sometimes that we look at things from our own perspective and the industry that we're in, but we've also got to think about, obviously third parties, you know, and people that are on the road users as well. So we'll have see if the video works, hopefully. Oops. Is it frozen, is it? So just, click through, cool. Technology.
Hello, my name is Gordon Douglas and I'm a driver at Petersons. Safety is paramount to our operations here at Petersons, and we are pleased to share with you a summary of our cargo safety inspection processes, which are used to prevent injury and detect any potential dropped objects. We use a number of safety checkpoints throughout the cargo handling process, including vehicle checks, visual inspection at the gantry, and checks prior to loading the vessel. Once I arrive at the client's premises, I'm given a cargo summary ticket. The cargo summary ticket will list the cargo that's been loaded onto the trailer. I then confirm that the cargo is correct and check to make sure that everything on the cargo checklist has been completed. I then carry out secondary checks, make sure any potential drop objects have not been missed. The areas that I can concentrate on are areas like ledges, pockets, doors and sling sets. Once completed, I secure the load and drive to the quayside. It is essential for the road travel that the load is secure and nothing can be worked loose or fall from the vehicle. The vehicle must also be suitably weight distributed and labelled. Secondly, once I arrive at the quayside, the gantry is used for a visual inspection. The cargo inspector will check off the cargo summary ticket. He will round and confirm that the cargo checks have been completed as per the checklist on the cargo summary ticket. Again, concentrating on ledges, sling sets, doors, latches, and checking that the tie wraps are in position. The gantry inspector has the opportunity to do the checks on all three levels. At the upper level, the gantry ensures that he can check more closely the rooftops and any of the units, ensuring that the shackles, split pins, and sling sets are correct. The final checks from us occur at the quayside prior to loading the vessel. The quayside operators have a 10-point checklist that they follow. Things that highlight would be shackles, split pins, ledges, and also the pockets. This would depend on which type of cargo is being loaded. By checking these areas, we are assured that the containers and lifting gear are in good condition and nothing has been left or stored in the pockets which could be dropped during lifting operations. All the doors, hatches have been secured to safely contain the load during its onward journey. You can see from all these safety checkpoints that loads are checked repeatedly throughout the process. This ensures that the safety of our drivers, operators, safety of people on the public highway, and safety of others in the onward supply chain from the potential risk of dropped objects.
Mike's over there. That's it. Once the cargo's on the truck, it's very limited to what somebody can check. You could even see when it got to the gantry there, cargo's butted up together. Once it goes to the quayside, they can then check different things. So it relies on that layering system, to carry out those checks, all throughout. Inspections may be shortened as well, when the parts becomes inaccessible. That might be on the vessel, or again we talked about on the truck. And also limitations highlighting the need for multiple layers as well. And that means that standard packaging, accurate documentation and clear communication throughout the process. The cargo summary ticket that's at the end there is a very important part of that process. That gives key checks for everybody to use throughout the process. And we pick stuff up from the vendor, the cargo summary ticket goes along the journey all the way through. Inspections at the journey's origin are therefore critical, and that's the bit that we want to highlight, because if we've missed something there, something's on the road. And obviously the details that are within the cargo summary ticket. Oops. Got to click on to the next one. It's not liking it today. But it's worth, and I'll be on the next slide as well, that the cargo summary ticket, although is a good checklist, and it makes sure that we're following a process all the way through, we've also got to understand that there's always going to be variations to that depending on the cargo, that comes. Okay. So as difficult, again, we're just waiting for the next slide coming through, but difficulties that we've just talked about personnel-wise, that, we've got different people at different stages of training, throughout that process. Most of the guys on the quay side, they'll carry out a kind of summarised, just one back, sorry, So that goes that human limitations. There can be that perception and judgment as well. Sometimes there'll be standard cargo going through. Some will be a bit more unique. Some people might have never seen that type of cargo before. So again, things can become very judgmental, or that perceptions of what's good and what's bad. And that's based on their own experience. I put in alertness, and environment as well, because again, for those, the vessel crews and that and as well, likewise the quayside, we've got people working potentially in the middle of the night, weather conditions, is the lighting good? And we're still carrying out these checks, even in those conditions, and that can create its own issues. Complacency, again, being picked up in a couple of the other presentations before. Again, that's probably where we do fall foul on, is the routine nature. You can see that cargo. We've got hundreds of bit of cargo going through the quayside, each day. Most of it is much the same. So people are seeing the same things over and over. So they become desensitized to the things that they're actually looking for. Again, things that we can work on as well. And Jock touched on that again at the beginning about those elements of skills gaps as well. We do have a bit more of a mobile workforce. We work with ad hoc employees, and things as well where people are all at different skill levels. And again, very difficult to make sure that we've got that standardized, on there. And again, that's another reason why having those layering systems. So that if we do have one area that's weaker, that we've got another that's stronger, and hopefully they interlap with each other. Other things, procedural limitations, and there are other elements as well, but I just put a couple of things in here. The checklist dependency. You do tend to see the same checklist going through. So if people are using the same checklist and they're checking a tank or they're checking something else, they may not marry up. And people, again, become blinded by checklists. Inconsistent standards. Different vendors, contractors may interpret the inspection criteria differently. And again, that leads to to uneven quality going through. And likewise, documentation errors. And that's certainly something that we've been working on over the last at least couple of years. Trying to improve on the documentation side of things. And interestingly enough, a lot of what we work with within Peterson, same as Asco, we work off of electronic systems now. So the cargo summary ticket is probably one of the few things that we've got paper-based. I'm assuming the same for yourselves as well. And I think that's looking at the future is looking at trying to turn that electronic. That's a wider problem, though. Okay. So just a few things, and again, this is myself and Jock. We were just talking about a few, what kind of things do we see? Yeah. And again, this is out with the PDO and the cargo inspection process. But things that we look at, kind of what we'd like to try and improve is the management of third parties, on the quaysides, especially in the shared facilities. We're picking up much the same things in our observation systems, drivers, etc. coming onto site. Challenging, to manage from a compliance perspective, and that's PPE. We're talking about PPE. Drivers arriving on site without the correct PPE. Communication, again, third-party drivers who speak different languages, and working together, to outline specific site requirements, ensuring site rules and emergency response plans are also understood as well. And we have done work on that, creating traffic management plans, cards, with all of those things on there as well. And also the need to work together on managing sim ops on the quayside. And I think we've actually done a good job on that at TMB. Certainly we're working on the different berths where we've had to work over in Asco's areas, and likewise coming back down as well. And I think that works quite well. Anything else you want to add to that, Jock?
Yeah, I guess the reality is different organisations, but same challenges, right? So that's ultimately where, through the conversations we've had, it's really about industry collaboration and how we can work together. Things are changing, things have changed, and things are going to change probably more into the future, and we've kind of seen that with the insights of where the industry's moving in the future and the uncertainty goes with it. So I hate sort of saying it, invariably it's about getting back to basics, and I guess you can tell by my accent, I'm not native to this part of the world, and having arrived here just over 12 months ago and worked in the Australian industry for the best part of 15 years, coming to the industry here at the stage of life it's at, a lot of things that the industry is seeing here is not new. It's just really about focusing how do we get back at being good at what we've been better at in the past, and how can we continue to be good at the things that we're doing. And it has to be collaborative. We've been talking to particularly our collective clients about what we're seeing and working with them to raise levels of awareness and education, okay? Same with working with organisations like Step Change and Safety. How can we raise awareness, particularly around, we talk about PDOs, but as Davey said, PDOs is just a very small part of that 1 to 500 series of reason codes that sit in the offshore packaging standard. It's a whole raft of things that we are seeing on a daily basis, and I think both organisations are quite guilty of the teams are can-do people, so when they see something that's a non-conformance, it's easier for them just to fix it, okay? But what we've not necessarily been very good at is then communicating that we had to fix something up and letting the right people know in the supply chain that something wasn't right. So we're doing a bit of education ourselves to say we need to highlight when we pick things up, let's fix them, that's good, because we've got a duty of care to do that, but let's make sure we share back to the key stakeholders that something wasn't quite right, and let's get their involvement to fix it at the source. That's the only thing I've got to add. I guess that's the end, and if there's any questions, sorry mate.
Yeah, I just want to reflect slightly on that. Thank you very much. Dropped objects, really important. Put it in perspective, I was reading a report last night. In the US alone in 2017, there was 237 fatalities by dropped objects. 23% in the US of all injuries is caused by dropped objects. So if we could all just take that one little step towards doing it. My question for one of you is, are we in danger of paper washing safety, using checklists to say, oh no, the checklist is filled, I'm safe? Do you see that in your piece?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. That's why I put that in. The checklist can become a bit of a, and there should be different checklists for different cargo. And unfortunately, you see quite often people they're using the same checklist, and then people become blinded to the actual check. So you're absolutely right. One thing, and again, just looking at time, but one thing I was going to add to that as well is that the future, they're looking at AI technology as well. You know, cameras that are probably at the quaysides or whatever as well that can pick up on, you know, things like PDOs. These are never going to be completely robust, but they're going to be another layer, to support the challenge of picking up on these things. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I guess the reality is you can't engineer everything out, right? So it's human factor at the end of the day, and a lot of it just comes down to knowledge and experience. And I think certainly in our organisation, we lost a lot of knowledge and experience, particularly around COVID. So it's how do we build that level of knowledge and experience up quickly. And you're right, because people are dealing with too much data in their daily lives now anyway, and you throw another bit of paper, it becomes it's a complacency thing again, right? Really what you want them to know is, what's the consequences if I don't do this check? And getting inside their head, that's the really important piece, because if they understand that, then they're more likely to be motivated to do it every time, regardless of, and we talked about this last week in our business, the people we've got on the front line as your employees as well, that are out there regardless of what the season's like and the weather, they're hard-working people, right? And they've got some arduous conditions. So it's how can we make it simple for them, but allow them to do their job and do it effectively? I think that's the key.
Thank you much. Just open the floor. Any questions for Petersons or Asco?
Thank you. I was at an MSF meeting, and it must have been 2007 or 2008, so it's quite a long time ago, and we're discussing potential dropped objects. And following that meeting, there was a few of us got our heads together to look to see if we could design out the opportunities, or particularly on CCU-based cargo. And there were a few design tweaks you can make to something that's based around the common design of a CCU. And it didn't look too onerous, but every time I look at a CCU now, it doesn't look like it's changed, and I wonder if anything had happened to it, or like the will to do it wasn't there.
Yeah, that's a good point. We'll get the 10-metre distance from Asco, so we're not... Yeah, we had the same, I wasn't at that forum, but we had issues with stones underneath the containers. And we had asked if there was a way that they could be sloped, so that stones wouldn't be picked up on. But it's a good point, and that would need to be taken up, further, obviously, from a design perspective of the containers, because we shouldn't be getting things like stones underneath. I mean, we're focusing on pockets and the ledges that are on the outside, but very difficult for somebody at 1 o'clock in the morning, when they're lifting, at the quayside, to check underneath. The container. So it's an absolutely good point, and something that should be brought forward, with that.
Nope. Okay. Thank you very much, both Asco and Petersons. Thank you.